Welcome, everybody. This is Julian from the Straight from a Scientist podcast. I'm back with a very interesting episode for y'all. I bring on Rachel Paul, who has a PhD in behavioral nutrition. Now, this episode is particularly important because of the obesity epidemic that we have in the United States. Now, Rachel comes on and she talks about how to manage weight effectively, some strategies she uses with her clients, and many other things. So please give it a listen. It's definitely worth listening to, and enjoy the episode. Welcome, everybody. This is Julian from Straight from a Scientist. I'm here with a very special guest, Rachel, who recently finished her PhD in nutrition. Introduce yourself, Rachel.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for having me. I'm Rachel Paul. I am the college nutritionist online and on social media. And yes, I just finished my PhD at Columbia in what's called behavioral nutrition. So it's a kind of a mixture of psychology and nutrition, how to best educate people on a larger scale.
That's really cool. Well, so explain a little bit more about behavioral nutrition. I guess from if I heard that, I would think that it was how nutrition affects your behavior, but I guess it's how behavior affects your nutrition, or what exactly?
So when we say behavior, we really mean the different types of eating, drinking, and physical activity behaviors. So, for example, eating fruits and vegetables, decreasing added sugar, doing more physical activity. So when I say behavior, that's really what we mean. So how can we, improve the nation's behaviors on a larger scale?
Yeah, very interesting. And that includes addiction, I would assume, right? Addiction to sugar. It seems that that's a huge thing now, and obviously
Yeah. I
alcohol
mean,
and food
there's
in
a lot of
general. Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of discussion on whether that's really a thing, whether can you really be addicted to a food substance? And so because that's not clear, we don't bridge that topic so much. But it is very interesting, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. I guess my understanding from that is connected to the microbiome. I guess from my understanding that different populations in the microbiome can cause cravings of different types of foods, but I'm not too sure about that. This is all
I
speculation.
think, yeah, I mean, I think that type of research is still more in its infancy, and so because that's not like a clear line, or there's not a clear effect, or really definitive information. That's not where we spend a lot of our time, and especially when you're educating the public, you have to do so in more layman's terms,
Of course,
right?
of course. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
more kind of easy to understand topics, and so in order to make kind of widespread change, so that's why we try to do real basic information.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the not everybody can be a PhD in nutrition like you, and so it can be very complicated, right?
No, I
Yes.
mean, and not saying that at all. Just if we're if we only have a few seconds to educate the public on
Ex-
something, we want it to be true information, right? And
Exactly.
be like really digestible.
Yeah, not I mean for us it's the same that we is kind of our mission too. Is like you can't not everybody can be doing all the research on everything, right? It's like it's impossible to know everything that's going on in the nutrition world or in any section, right? So,
Absolutely.
really cool.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you, how has nutrition changed in the past, I guess 10, 15 years? Because it seems I remember maybe about 10 years ago there was a big study saying like fats are the devil and low fat diets are the way to go, but then that study got debunked and things are changing, and when we were taught as kids we were taught the what was it, the food pyramid. Remember? And it seems to be changing every 5 years or 10 years or so. Now it's the plate, and who knows in the next couple of years what it will be. What is your opinion on that? What's happening?
Yeah, I think it's maybe been a few more than 10 years, but definitely the more recent history, the focus was on low fat foods. And now the research is now showing that that's actually not really true, because when we eat a lot of low fat foods, what people typically do is then eat more sugar and more refined carbohydrates, and that has been a huge problem. So now the research is more saying, which is what I definitely agree with, is that having a more higher fats in the diet are actually much more beneficial in maintaining many people's health goals, most of which are weight loss and weight management. It's easier to stick with a lower calorie diet or not exceed your calorie kind of intake if you are eating more fat and more protein, because those are much more satiating than a higher sugar based diet.
Exactly. Sugar is kind of like a fast high, and you get hungry again right away.
Right.
Okay. Interesting. Now, what's a typical day for you? Like, what kind of foods do you eat? What's your breakfast, lunch, dinner? Just on a typical day of Rachel.
Yeah, absolutely. So I eat a lot of eggs. I eat a lot of protein and non-starchy vegetables. So the difference between starchy vegetables and non-starchy vegetables, starchy vegetables are more like the potatoes, the beans, the rice. I'm sorry, the peas, the corn, and the non-starchy vegetables are all of kind of the green ones, the more watery ones. So cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, those types of things, broccoli. And I do also eat a lot of high quality frozen items because I really like to enjoy what I'm eating on a daily
Mm-hmm.
basis. And I'm very busy, and as I know everyone else is. And
Everybody's
so,
busy.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I rely myself. I recommend this for other people, that you do find some very easy to put together things, whether that's something that's frozen, whether something that's canned, some very easy things that you can easily get your hands on and can make very quickly. So, for instance, I really love the Trader Joe's cauliflower crust pizza.
Oh yeah.
I
Trader
I
Joe's
love
is the best. Yeah.
I love their spinach and artichoke dip. Those types of different things. So something that I also think is very important is really enjoying your food and not eating just kind of for the health of it type of thing. Because if we're just focusing on eating foods just because they're healthy, that's going to get old very quickly, right?
Yeah.
To kind of marry the two, eating for health, but also eating for enjoyment.
Yeah, you can maintain it. I've tried to eat just chicken and rice and kind of like a bodybuilder's diet, and it gets so boring so fast. After 1 week, you're like, oh, chicken again? I can't do it.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah,
having things in the freezer and having things in the pantry and not relying so much on fresh food. I do honestly think is one of the best things to do, because then you can have much more variety in your diet, right? If you, for instance, if you meal prepped one thing for the whole week, you're probably going to be sick of that by day 3, right? But if you had
exactly.
lots of other options, you can really make something that's healthy work for you for the longer term.
Exactly. Yeah, and one thing that I learned recently is that frozen vegetables actually have very similar nutrient profiles than a fresh vegetable. And
Yep.
for some reason I had this stigma like, oh, frozen vegetables, no, I don't. But recently I was like, oh, maybe that makes sense. I guess it's just frozen. It's a fresh vegetable that was preserved. That's all. So,
Exactly. I really recommend to clients and to my audience that stocking up on frozen vegetables and frozen protein is one of the best things you can do for yourself, because then you can eat exactly what you want to eat at that time. It
exactly.
lasts forever. It just makes it really easy.
That's awesome. That's a great tip for listeners. Now, I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite cheat food? So we all like to eat healthy, but what's the thing that you have to cheat on sometimes?
I don't
You don't
really
have a
feel.
cheat food.
I don't. Yeah, because I honestly eat whatever I want to eat at that time.
Okay.
So I do eat dessert. I do eat that cauliflower crust pizza very often. But everything can fit into my goals. So I do follow a general low carbohydrate diet. I am in no way keto. I am in no way super low carb. But I eat foods that I really love and kind of incorporate health along the way. And so that I don't ever feel like I'm cheating or going off the plan type of thing.
Exactly.
But I do find for people, what's kind of an easier way to think about it is to think about it as more of a planned exception.
Hmm.
So instead of something like cheating, because the word cheating is it's a pretty negative
It's got a
word.
negative connotation. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you think about, if you're going into a situation like a birthday or something, you're going into a situation that you know is not going to be like of the chicken and vegetable variety. To really plan ahead and to plan for it as an exception, a planned exception, so that you don't feel like, like I went off the plan. Now I'm gonna, the rest of the week is not worth it, or the rest of the weekend I'm just gonna eat whatever I want. That can be the most detrimental thing.
Very interesting. Yeah, exactly. And that could be one reason why diets fail, right? Because they have such strict rules and yeah, and high pressure. So you're saying
Exactly.
just relax a little bit, follow it most
Yeah.
of the time, but don't feel bad if you eat some chocolate cake here and there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very interesting. Now I wanted to ask you about some popular diets nowadays because it seems, for me, I try not to talk at dinner parties about diets, politics, or religion because people get so strong and defensive about, especially diets too. So I wanted to ask you, what is your opinion on diets? For example, let's start with the ketogenic diet. And you can just
Yeah,
give
I
me,
mean, I think
yeah,
generally any diet that is so extreme is not A, healthy, or B, realistic for any kind of long term. Our bodies do need all types of food and foods from all types of sources. So I do understand that following some kind of strict diet can be fun, and especially at first, right? And it can be also helpful because a lot of times if you just say to someone, oh, like eat whatever you want, in moderation, that's too broad, right?
yeah,
That's
exactly.
helpful enough. So sometimes having more strict guidelines, people can feel that is helpful, but generally it's only helpful for the short term, right? So for the keto diet, from what I know, there's not research on the long term effects of keto. I know that a lot of people have had success, just like with any diet, um, on going keto for the short term. I do think one of the strong benefits of a low carbohydrate diet, which is what I do recommend, is that you're more satisfied and full on fat and on protein than you are on a high carbohydrate diet. I know there are studies that compare the same calorie intake, but a higher carbohydrate diet versus a lower carbohydrate diet, and people are just more satisfied, more full, can stick to it for longer if they have more fat and more protein in their diet versus
Hmm.
higher carbohydrate one. So I do think it's too extreme. I don't think it's good to cut out anything in its entirety, any source of food, whole foods. But so, I don't think that any diet, including keto, is realistic for the long term.
Yeah, it can be very
But I
difficult.
do
Yeah.
see the benefits, of a higher protein, high fat diet for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I mean, coming from a science background, the only, there's the main benefit that ketogenic diet has is mainly for patients, I guess, with epilepsy and autoimmune disease. But this is kind of an extreme case, a very small percentage of people. And in that case, you almost need to do it. And it's the first thing they recommend for epilepsy, for example. But for an
But
average person wanting to lose weight, I completely agree with you. I think it's just too intense, and it can be very difficult. And even going into ketosis, you can enter the keto flu. You feel sick. You feel you don't have a lot of energy.
right,
So I think it's very
right,
extreme. Yeah, I agree. It's possibly it can be difficult to sustain.
yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
I do, although I do think it's too extreme, like I said, I do think that a higher protein, high fat diet is just more sustainable than other types of
Yeah.
approaches, ways of eating, just because typically people are more satisfied on less calories of food if there's more protein and fat in there.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. What about fasting? And fasting is something that I've recently started to do. Not long fast, but sometimes I'll do a 20-hour fast or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's something that for me has given me a lot of energy. It gives me energy during the mornings until I kind of get to the hangry point where I'm hungry and angry. And then I start to lose my energy, and people around me might not want to stay around me. So,
Yeah.
but
So
I find it good too. I don't know. What's your opinion on that?
mhm. So I would say that that like intermittent fasting or that type of thing is more of a psychological trick rather
Hmm.
than true biological benefits. However, that's still good. If it's a psychological trick and it works for you, not you, but any, a person, if that works for that person, that's great, right? I do something that I always do with my clients or in my courses. When we talk about breakfast, the first thing we talk about is, are you hungry for breakfast? If you're not hungry, do not eat for the sake of eating,
Excellent
right?
advice.
And
Yeah.
because once you start eating, then your metabolism has started, and then you're hungry soon afterwards, right? But if you're for your body, if you just don't get hungry in the morning, if you just don't get hungry for breakfast, let's wait until lunch, or let's eat a very late breakfast and then have like kind of a midday snack lunch so that it better fits your body. And I do think that a lot of people have seen the benefits of this intermittent fasting, because then it also cuts out late night eating. And late night eating is a very difficult situation because, we only have a certain amount of self control during the day, or for any one day. And it decreases throughout the day, right? So then when we get to the evening part of the day, we don't have very much self control left. And so it's very easy to eat ice cream and to eat fried foods and all of these foods that are really going to
Mm.
possibly hurt us kind of down the road if we eat too much of them, right? So it's very difficult to measure out half a cup of ice cream at 2 a.m. when you're studying for a test, right?
Exactly.
Those are the two benefits, more of a psychological benefit of kind of maybe not eating first thing in the morning if you're not hungry, and then also cutting out that late night eating.
Yeah, I'm definitely agree with you. I wake up and I'm not hungry, but when I tell people I don't eat breakfast, sometimes they get angry at me, especially like older women, parents. They're always like, "What are you doing? You can't skip breakfast. It's the most important meal of the day."
Right, right.
And yeah, but anyway,
And then for the breakfast research, it really shows that that's not the most
and
important of the
also, one
day.
yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up, because you work with a lot of individual clients. I wanted to bring up, how what are differences, because not everybody will follow the same diet, right? I mean, depending on your weight, your height, I guess your age, all these different factors factor into how much you should be eating, right? I mean, how do you tailor it for each client that you have?
Yeah, so if I'm working with someone, what we do is we go over what they typically are eating in a day, and then I can guesstimate how many calories they're currently taking in. Most of what I do is weight management. So then we
Okay.
create a diet that's a little bit fewer calories than that. I do not for weight management, if weight loss is something that's of interest to the person, it's much better for weight loss to be a slow and steady process, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because then we can keep up your metabolism. If you're eating 1,800 calories a day and we put you on a 1,200 calorie diet, sure, you're going to lose weight pretty quickly. You're going to lose a significant amount of weight, but at some point we will get to a weight loss plateau, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that always happens. And then if you're only eating 1,200 calories a day, there's like nothing to take away, right? But
Yeah.
if we do it a slow and steady process, so maybe we start at 1,600 calories, and then when we get to a plateau, we go to 1,500 or 1,525, something like that. Then we can really make this for a longer term solution, and also it's more doable for the long term solution. You're not going to eat 1,200 calories for the rest of your life, right?
Exactly. Yeah, also, I guess from what I understand, that the body has a set point and like a weight that it wants to stay at. So if you drop weight really fast, it's going to want to go back to your previous weight, correct?
Yeah, I think that type of research is a little bit mixed because, for instance, if someone was at a set point of, let's just say, 150 pounds, and then for whatever reason they gained 50 pounds, maybe it was like a really stressful time in their life or
Yeah.
whatever, and now they're at 200 pounds. And then we were losing weight from there. They may be stuck at a weight loss plateau at 175. That's not necessarily their
A
set
set
point.
point. Yeah, very interesting.
50, right? So it's the best thing to do is to not have gained the weight in the first place.
Yeah,
That's
of
really the
course. So it's easier to gain it than it is to lose it, right?
exactly. But that, of course, that's much easier said than done. And what a lot of people who do want to lose weight, what are they going to do? They've already gained the weight, right?
Exactly.
So we do have to figure out what to do in that situation, and it's a slow and steady process. So the person has to keep up that motivation, which can be really hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially during these times of the plateaus, that's a difficult time, but it is the most important time to kind of stick with things,
Of
right?
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, now getting back to the diets, I wanted to hear your opinion on vegetarian and vegan diets.
Yeah. So
So, yeah,
another trend is kind of the sustainability trend, right? Which is a wonderful trend, and it's
of
great to
course.
be looking out for our planet. Absolutely. There are many types of vegetarianism, right? There's like pesco ovo, where you eat fish and eggs. There's more towards the vegan, where maybe you only eat eggs, you don't eat fish. Um, similar to with the keto, I don't think it's healthy or sustainable to cut out food groups in their entirety, because
Mm-hmm.
there are just certain nutrients that you can't get from other things that maybe you can get part of from a vegetarian source, but you can't get the whole thing. So, unless there's a allergy or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where really cutting out the food is imperative, I would not recommend a vegan diet for the health of the body. As much protein sources as you're willing to eat for the vegetarian diet, I would say that that's okay. And definitely, getting animal protein from locally sourced farms, and that raised without antibiotics. All of
Mm-hmm.
those things I think are wonderful if you can afford it. But I just, from the research that I have read from my courses, it's difficult to, nearly impossible to get everything you need if you are only eating a plant-based diet.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. um, yes, definitely. Now, I was going to ask you, I had a good question, but I just forgot it. What was it? Oh. Yeah, because you have to be very careful with your amino acid profiles and getting, right, all
And
of
also,
them.
like,
And yeah.
heme iron is not found in many vegetarians. So there's
Mm-hmm.
two types of iron: heme iron and non-heme iron. That's very important for women, right? You need
Yeah.
that heme iron if you lose it every month. And then that's difficult to get from all vegetarian sources. Also, omega-3 fatty acids are somewhat biologically available in walnuts, and some nuts, but it's most biologically available in the fish
Mm-hmm.
forms. And so if you're not eating the fish, it's very difficult to get that, even if you
Yeah.
ate tons of nuts. It's just like
Exactly.
you need the biologically available nutrient, and it's much better to get it from food than to take a pill. I'm
I
also
was gonna ask you
subscribed.
that too. Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you take any supplements? Are you no nothing?
Yeah, I really think it's better to get it from the food.
I agree
Nutrition is the
100%. Yeah.
newest science, so we're still finding things out, right? We're still learning about new different nutrients and different, like we were saying, the gut health is very
The gut
new.
health is
There
huge. Yeah, it's been blowing up the past couple of years. Something that I'm personally I'm very
Yeah,
interested in.
there
Yeah.
you know there and there's new nutrients, there's new things that are discovered all the time. You might as well eat everything so that you put yourself in the best situation.
Just eat everything. That's the best advice. I want to get back to something you said previously about antibiotics and steroids. Do you think that any of that, eating an animal that has taken steroids or antibiotics, is any of that getting into us? Are we getting any negative side effects from that? Do you think we get any trace levels
Yeah, I
of?
do think it's possible. However, I do think that once you are of the like income status to be able to afford meat that's raised without antibiotics and all of those stuff, then that's fine.
It's just gonna be
But
better. Yeah.
right, that would be the better choice. But I would say I don't agree that it's better to eat potato chips because you're worried that the chicken has,
Yeah. No.
you
Of
know,
course. Of course. So it's better to eat. Yeah. Just chicken with steroids than potato chips.
I know that's like a terrible thing to
No, that's
maybe say,
okay.
but
I wanted to also go back to fermented foods. Do you, talking about the microbiome, do you eat any fermented foods? I know in all around the world, there's kimchi and I think Korea, right? And kefir and yogurt and all that stuff. Are you a fan of fermented foods? Is this something you try to get in your diet?
Yeah, I do eat yogurt. I do love yogurt. I do eat pickles and sauerkraut sometimes. I don't love the taste of them, so
They're very sour.
I would recommend a person to eat them, but I might
But you
not
won't
eat
eat
them.
that. What about kombucha? Every time I come, I'm in Italy right now, but every time I come back to the U.S., I see more and more kombucha. Everybody's drinking it. It seems to be the new
Yeah,
popular trend.
it depends on the kombucha. It's also can be like a sugary beverage, right? It's
Yeah,
not like
exactly.
that different from drinking sugar water, right? The research does show um, if we had some fruits, for example, and we blended them up and made them into a smoothie, you're psychologically and physiologically less full on the smoothie than if you had like chomped on the pieces of fruit, right? So it's better to chew
Well,
than to
that
drink.
makes sense actually. Yeah, yeah, interesting.
So definitely like a kombucha has more is more beneficial to your body than drinking a soda. But it's still liquid calories. It's still liquid sugar calories, kind of at the end
Hmm.
of the day. So I would, it really depends on the person and the person's goals.
Yeah, I
Um,
guess from a calories in, calories out standpoint, it's probably a high calorie drink, of course, due to the sugar. But I guess if you have any sort of post antibiotic gut problems or anything like that, maybe it's something that you want to look at. Yeah, it's more medicinal than for weight loss. I guess it depends what you're looking for, right?
yeah, that's something.
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to get into lactose. What's your opinion? I mean, I guess you've seen and studied lactose, and it seems that a lot of people are lactose intolerant. More than we previously thought. Um,
You know what? I honestly don't
what do
really think that's
you
true.
don't
I
think so?
think
Okay. Tell me. Tell
I
me.
think I think that the when people say they cut out dairy and they see so many benefits from that, it's not that they're cutting out a string cheese and are now feeling better. They're cutting out pizza and ice cream and those types of things,
Yeah.
right? That yes, of course, then you would feel better. But when I'm counseling someone and they tell me this, if we have shredded cheese in a salad or we have like a string cheese as part of a snack, that is completely fine. So I
Yeah.
think that yeah, cutting out that type of very decadent food or having less of that more decadent food can be really helpful. But I for dairy, I feel like dairy's gotten such a bad rap that's just not warranted.
Yeah. No, that's a very interesting point. Yeah. People string cheese. That was funny. Um, Yeah, I'll bring this up because we just recently got contacted by Plant Warrior, which is one of our new sponsors, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what they've been doing. So I wanted to bring up. I don't. You said you don't take supplements, right? And in the past, I used to take whey protein supplements. I'm assuming you don't recommend that to your. No.
Well, I mean that mostly the people I see and the people that I help are young women whose goals are more of the weight management
Weight management. Okay.
rather than like gaining weight or
Gaining
gaining
weight.
like lots of muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely like maintaining muscle mass and becoming more lean, but not really a weight a weight gain situation.
Exactly.
Um,
Nah, very interesting. Yeah, so but I just wanted to bring up one of the problems I had with whey and even just milk in general was the fact that after drinking it, I would just feel super bloated. Like I felt almost like pregnant.
mhm.
And so I finally realized that it was the whey protein that I was taking and finally cut it out. Now, I'm not one to take supplements either, but what is your opinion on kind of just plant-based protein shakes in general? Like a Plant Warrior, for example, I think their protein has pea protein, rice protein, and hemp protein. I believe I have to double check that.
So I would say, it really depends on the person and the person's goals. But I would say that, like I said before, for instance, if we had some fruits and then we blended them up and made them into a smoothie. You're psychologically and physiologically less full on the smoothie than if you had chomped on the pieces of fruit.
Yeah, of course.
So if I'm counseling someone, this is kind of one of my tenets, is to not drink your calories. So I would recommend to eat a can of tuna fish versus to drink a smoothie, a protein
Of
smoothie
course.
kind of
I guess
situation.
in these cases, these protein smoothies are for the super busy person that's running from job to, meeting or whatever, and they just need a quick snack, or
But
if
you
they,
can also like
yeah,
get a little pack of nuts and just dump that pack of nuts into your mouth.
yeah,
I
of
feel like
course.
that's
But
quick.
that takes, yeah, no, I'm with you. But that takes planning the day before, and that's
Necessarily, because you could leave a whole bunch of packs of nuts in your office versus having to mix and create a protein drink.
okay. Very fair, very fair. Well, interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I usually buy a big bag of almonds, and that's kind of my snacking food for the
So
day.
I would say I also don't necessarily agree with that. Of course, it depends on the person's
You
goals.
don't,
I would
you
say
don't
for
like
my
almonds?
I would say for my clients, let's like pre-package those into little baggies yourself or little containers yourself, or buy individual packs, which I know is a little more wasteful, but it's also very much more convenient. And
To
then you can
manage it.
more easily, create your environment to more easily stick with your health goals.
Very
Right.
interesting. That's a good point. So instead of having a huge bag that you can just endlessly eat, to have small little bags. Very interesting.
Right.
Okay.
Or
Yeah. So
contain reusable containers if you don't want to do the plastic, which is fine.
exactly, because plastic, that's another big thing. These days, save the
Along
environment.
with the sustainability.
Exactly. So, what if you had to give 3 tips to somebody that wants to, I guess, lose weight or manage their weight? What would those final 3 most important tips be?
So I have some kind of tenets or kind of rules of thumb that I do with my clients and I have in my course. So my first rule of thumb is one starchy food per day. So starchy foods include grains like bread, rice, pasta, quinoa, but they also include starchy vegetables. So beans, peas, corn, potatoes, hummus, falafel, french fries, that type of thing. It's my
Mm-hmm.
first rule of thumb. And then my second rule of thumb is one fruit per day. So for the same reason that we're limiting those starchy carbohydrates. You want you to get all your vitamins and minerals from non-starchy vegetables. So I really want to beef up the non-starchy vegetables in the
Mm-hmm.
diet. But the fruits and the starches have 2, 3, 4, 5 times as many calories as the non-starchy vegetables, and they're not really any more filling. And I want you to
Mm-hmm.
be as full and satisfied as possible. Right?
Very
And then
interesting.
my last rule of thumb would to not, like we were talking about, is to not drink your calories, right? So to really try to eat, to try to chew as much as possible. Same thing with, for instance, salad dressing. So I don't think that salad dressing is filling in and of itself, right? I'm not like full on salad dressing. So
Mm-hmm.
I would really recommend a low calorie salad dressing so you're still getting the taste, but you're not wasting potentially hundreds of
Yeah,
calories.
or some olive oil and vinegar. You just a basic salad dressing. I mean,
Well, I would
not
say I don't even know if that's such a great one because that can easily be 300 calories right then and there. And if you
really.
were on a 1,500 calorie diet, you probably don't want to spend 300 calories on salad dressing, on oil and vinegar.
Yeah, or just eat it raw with no salad dressing, I guess.
Or what about a low calorie salad dressing that's still like good, healthful ingredients, right? Or
Okay.
making a salad dressing yourself that's not, what is it, like a 3-to-1 ratio with oil and vinegar, making that ratio different so it's not
Mm-hmm.
all of that oil, right? I mean, oil is very healthy. I'm not saying it's not healthy, but it can add so many calories that are hidden, and let's try to eliminate those more hidden
Yeah, it can be
types.
very dangerous, I guess, drinking your calories. Of course, alcohol, beer. There's actually one question that I skipped over that I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
What's the deal with wine? Everybody's saying that wine is super healthy now because it has resveratrol and all that. So, do you want to debunk our myths, or do you want to make everybody happy and tell them that wine is
Well,
is the
I wouldn't
superfood?
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend, if someone does not drink alcohol to then start drinking
For
alcohol
the
for the
health
health
benefit, of course.
benefits. But I know with alcohol, what I generally recommend is to stick with types that don't include added sugar. So
Hmm.
try not to do the rum and coke, try not to do the margarita. If we can stick with whatever it is, wine, light beer, vodka soda, whatever it is without the added sugar, like we were talking about in the beginning, do what makes you happy. What is going to, what do you like the best? How are you going to best enjoy the situation? If you really like light beer and, you want to stick with that, that's great. If if you really like light beer, but you hear that everyone's saying that wine is so wonderful, so you drink wine just to kind of for the health of it, but you're not going to really enjoy the situation, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah, exactly. Because, like you said, again, it's not sustainable.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
very interesting. Okay. Well, cool. Well, thank you for coming on, Rachel. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. I hope everybody learned a lot and that we all are able to manage our weight better. So, thank you again for
Thank you
coming
so
on.
much for having me. It's been really a
Yeah, of
pleasure.
course. Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning into the Straight From a Scientist podcast. This is Julian again. If you enjoy what we're doing here at Straight From a Scientist podcast, please feel free to donate on our Patreon page. We just joined Patreon. The link is in the show notes as well as on our main website page. Also, we recently gained a new sponsor, Plant Warrior. Now, Plant Warrior is 100% plant-based protein with a full amino acid profile. And they plant a tree for every bag of protein powder that you buy. So definitely highly recommended. Connor and I have both used it in the past, and it's excellent. If you use whey protein now and you have bloating, definitely switch over to plant-based proteins. And you can use the discount code SFS10 to get 10% off your purchase on this amazing plant-based protein. So thanks for tuning in. Bye.